All right, welcome everybody. It's 9:02 a.m. I'll call this meeting to order. Harmony is ready.
Director Bradley.
Here.
Director Brems. Director Cardenas.
Here.
Director Daly.
Here.
Director Keekly. Here. Director Litvack. Here. Director Olson. Director Peterson.
Here.
Director Prokopis.
Here.
Director Silvestrini.
Here.
Director Stevenson.
Here. Okay. All right, move into public comments. Do we have any public comments today? Online.
Mr. Chair, I do want to just thank members of the precinct team for their coordination with the Unified Fire Authority with the response to the unfortunate shooting event that we had in our city. But really a quick response to the UPD and their actual life-saving techniques to apply tourniquets into that individual who was just shot in a drive-by. They saved his life and he was able to transport him to the hospital and he's going to make it. And I've already talked to people at UFA who expressed their appreciation for the team because they have it's really it's an unfortunate situation that we have that going on in the town, but thank goodness for you guys, and I want to thank the folks that responded to that call.
Yeah, the public. Right. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, which is the update.
Good morning, everybody. I want to start with thanking Mill Creek for passing along Chief DeVry's retirement. Went really well. My understanding is you recognized him in Mill Creek. He did not want anything official, so we kind of respected his, what he wanted. So wanted to make sure that we just thank you for that because somehow you snuck that in, and that's awesome.
So, I mean, I don't know if you guys know Steve DeVry, but he served both the sheriff, he's a cop his whole life, and he served, the Salt Lake County Sheriff, a man in UPD for his whole career, and was a fantastic precinct chief, a friend of mine, an old school cop. And he did things by the book, but he did things well and was a person of integrity. We're going to miss him. And he did not want us to do anything. He came to me and said, don't do anything. And so I kind of tried to balance that, hey, you can't get out of here after this kind of a career and not get some kind of recognition. So we did that at a city council meeting. Gave him, he's a Broncos fan. We gave him a Broncos cooler and blanket, and made sure that his wife was there. And he actually presented her with, we do an officer of the month kind of deal in Mill Creek, and he gave it to her. So which was awesome. Anyway, great career. We're gonna miss him. But there's a lot of changes in our precinct right now going on, but he's a good guy, and I'm glad we're able.
And I just want to thank you for doing that. I did meet with him after that. That meant the world for me. It truly did. So just wanted to acknowledge that. And with that, with his leaving, Mill Creek has picked a new chief in his position. So I want to announce today that Lieutenant Christine Brown is who they chose. So she'll be the new precinct chief of Mill Creek. I know she'll do a fantastic job. She has her whole career. I've known her for most of our career. And I think she's going to do fantastic and serve your community very, very well. So congratulations, Christine. I hope she's in the.
So if I can say, first of all of you guys can thank us for not robbing you of one of the other really qualified candidates who applied for the position from one of the other precincts in our department. Christina's been the XO in Mill Creek, so we've kind of had an opportunity to see her work, and I think she will do a great job. But the other applicants for the job were fantastic, and it's always just a really hard decision. So I want to thank the other three that applied for this position and let you guys know. I have talked to at least one of you personally, but keep at it. You're all excellent candidates, and someday there'll be a spot for you. And super hard decision. And I also want to thank the committee. Nick Renfro helped us and to make sure that we had Nick, as you may know, is a sergeant in Mill Creek, so I wanted to have him there not only to represent labor, but also to represent the folks in our precinct that we have input in that decision. Chief Maz and Chief Dial helped interview, as well as Mike Winder, our city manager, and Bev Wheatley, who is a council member in Mill Creek, who has always had a special interest and a special place in her heart for me. So anyway, thanks. I think we made a good decision, Christine. I'm looking forward to working with you, and we have some things to do moving into the new building.
Since we're doing some kind of recognition, I want to just say that we received a letter from Stanislaus County, and the district attorney there, Jeff Lagaro, he wanted to make sure that our detectives were recognized. So back in 2017 and 2018, they had a serial rapist who did several separate kidnappings and sexual assaults, and they found out this individual moved to Salt Lake County. And our detectives were able to help them apprehend this individual. And I just want to read the names in this letter. When we get letters like this, I'll have Harmony send it out to the board, and then we do a cover letter to each one, just so they know that we also appreciate what we did. But Detective Chris Christensen, Caden Sperry, Chris Sullivan, Dion Woodward, Amy Race, FBI agent Justin Hanson, Sergeant Rod Scott, Detective Karshner, Detective Parsons Metzkow, and then Detective Jim Guzman from the sheriff's office. That's how many people participated in taking this person into custody. So just want to recognize them for their efforts and let the board know how great everybody works together. We know it's, not even in our jurisdiction, but the person was in our jurisdiction. So kudos for these detectives, and also for Chief Albee, because he's always been very, very supportive when we get calls like this throughout the country in supporting his people to just do the work. So kudos to all of them. Just wanted to let the board know that. And then we also received early intervention grant we had put in for it. So many of you may not know what our AIM system is, but it is a system that we put our IA cases in, and we can track, various officers of what they're doing, discipline-wise, things like that. That system's going away, and the state has already started looking for new alternatives, and IA Pro is one that the state has decided is a good program. So they offer these grants. We applied for the grant, and we were awarded $27,700 to get it started. We're still waiting to find out if years 2 and 3 will be awarded as well. If not, we'll have to include some of that into the budget. But we have to have some type of early intervention system, especially for IA cases and tracking disciplines and things. So excited for that grant, because that does help pay for us. Any questions that you have on that? And then don't forget the Halloween party. I know it's at the bottom of the agenda as well, but it is, I'm looking for the date on this, the 27th of October from 1 to 6. Please bring your families. kids, grandkids, whoever you want to bring, and if you can, dress up. So it's a great event that we put on, and I just want to give a shout out to Danny Bills, because as you walk through this building, you see all the decorations. She coordinates all that. She does a fantastic job, and just wanted to recognize her for that. The other thing that I do want to talk about is so as we're promoting people, and we're finding that we're taking a look at who do we need to promote, and do we need to hold off on promotions. We're in a situation right now that we have a sergeant opening coming up on the 29th because Cynthia Archuleta is going over to the sheriff's office as the undersheriff. That opens up an opening. Now with the transition of Christine taking Steve DeBrise, that opens up a lieutenant spot, that opens up a sergeant spot. So we have to do some promotions. Currently, the number one person on the sergeant's list is Scott Wilbur. He has spent 10 years in K9. He has really been a critical part of why our K9 team is so successful. We're in a situation now where the dog that he currently has, who is his partner, who is part of our team, is still young. He has requested if he could keep the dog and keep the dog trained. In the past, we have taken the dogs from the handler and transitioned them to new handlers. The last two, we know, did not work out, complete failures. And it costs more money to do that. So I just want to get some direction from the board, what direction to go with this, because we have set a precedent, but we also know that doesn't work well. Other agencies, we looked into some other agencies, how they do it, and the same thing has happened. The dogs are either put down, transferred out of state, taken completely out of service, because once they bond with that officer and the family, it's really hard to break that bond. And so my request would be that we allow him to take the dog and retire the dog. And then Friends of K9, who have been a great organization for us, they have committed to supplying us with a new dog. So I would like to do that. I think it's important because I have seen kind of what the trauma to the past two handlers when we took their dogs, not just to them, but to their families, has created. So I would really like to not create that again. Just need some direction from the board. If you're supportive, I'll go ahead and do the promotion, and I'll put this in for next, what is it, in 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, our next meeting, and get it approved by you. But I just need some kind of direction because it is a financial piece that I can't make those decisions. So.
That seems like the right thing to do, Sheriff.
I agree.
I agree.
Yes, the dog, he didn't want to stay with his family.
I'm sure the dog would like to stay with them.
I have a question. Does this essentially retire that dog, or is Scott in his new role still be available for call out at the new rank, or?
It would retire it because it wouldn't be an active assigned to the K9. But I've talked to Scott and he's willing to continually train with him. I mean, he is the expert in K9 in that area. And with this new transition of, going to sheriff's office and UPD, we don't know yet, are we going to share K9? Are we going to each have our own? So one could eventually maybe bring him on as a sergeant over K9. We currently have a sergeant in K9. So when that transition, if he's willing to come back to the unit at some point on either side of the house, that would work as well. But it is good to keep the dog active, and we're happy to include in any of the trainings and special events, things like that. And I'm happy for Scott to
So it sounds like
too.
that Not doing that likely won't work anyway, and so it doesn't make any sense to.
Right, right. And if I could go back to, previous, when we made those decisions, we asked people who had been in K-9 and so we made those decisions, but I mean, the last two dogs just did not work out that way. And I think, we're constantly saying we take care of our family first, and we have this philosophy. I really think it's important to take care of the officer. He dedicated 10 years to K-9. That's a big deal because K-9 is not an easy job for anybody. It's extra work all the time. So that's just my view, but I'm happy to bring it back at the next board meeting. And if you have questions then, I can answer them then, but we can put it on the agenda to make it happen if that works for all of you, and I can go forward with the motion. Right, great, thank you. Now I have Mark Olson up here, and he is going to update you on staffing because we have to do that each time that we do an update.
Thank you. So since our last meeting, I've put together some information. You can put that up on the screen here, Harmony. I've just created kind of a dashboard that I intend to share with all of the commanders through a shared network drive. Certainly we can push this out to any of you that are interested in getting this on a regular basis. I can also and will present it here to keep you updated on where we are with staffing. So as you can see, in our sworn side, we currently have 6 true vacancies with 12 encumbered for training in addition to that. So it feels like we're down, 18 people. But in reality, 12 of those are in training. Right. So we're only down 6 true vacancies. You can see where those fall. You can see they're in Holiday has one on patrol. Mill Creek, that was Steve DeBry's position. Congratulations to Christine. So we'll move that down to the lieutenant spot now. And then we have 3 in Midvale, 1 in Magna, and that's it for the sworn side.
We just requested a new officer allocation too, like in the last day or two. I don't remember that.
It is not represented here, but I am aware of that. As soon as it's funded, we'll get it on here for you. On the civilian side of the house, they're a little bit different animal because there's so many job titles. So what I've done here is just put in the ones that are open. And I'll continually update that. So you can see in technical services, we're down 3 information specialists, 1 part-time property and evidence technician, and 1 part-time radio technician. I was talking to Captain Andrew Weirden this morning. There is no intention on their part to fill the information specialist positions, knowing that with this transition, we're going to go down in the number of bodies that are required to work there. So they're trying to account for that. To absorb that workload, they intended to burn some overtime with those 3 vacancies to keep the workload where it needs to be. So that's where we're at there on the civilian side of the house. Right below that, with the pending resignations, we know that Sergeant Archuleta is going over to the county as the undersheriff. We had a Mill Creek patrol officer resign. He's actually going to go to UFA. They stole him from us. Be an arson investigator. And then Taylor Walters, who is our asset supply coordinator and technical services, we hired him as an officer for UPD. So he's going to start the academy here next month. So that'll create an additional opening in technical services. And then in the candidate pipeline, you can see there below, we have 3 entry-level candidates that we have hired. They start the academy on November 13th. And so their hire date will be November 9th. We'll do their onboarding. And then we have 8 entry-level candidates in the background process and 2 lateral candidates that are currently in the background. And we have 1 additional lateral that just applied that is pending his first interview with the sheriff. So that's kind of our pipeline, what's coming. And then Harmony, if you can flip over to the last tab on that sheet, the 2024 hiring
So
timeline.
that bottom section, does that represent the 12?
Yeah, that will backfill those 12. Yes, or no, I'm sorry, that will backfill the 6.
That's
Three
right.
vacancies.
It would be
Yeah,
helpful.
12 are already hired in the process of training.
It might be helpful to know if there's 12 in the pipeline, when you'll realize those in the streets, you know.
So Harmony, if you can hover over, go to Magna where it says number 4 there. If you can just hover over that. So the commander can go in there and see who's assigned in those encumbrances and when they will be done.
Perfect.
So those two, one of 24 candidates will both have previous experience, so they'll be done a lot sooner. And then we have 2 of those that. So. I'll manage that. Okay, if you just go to the 2024 hiring timeline, this will just give you a sense of what we're planning for next year. So we have, again, what I just showed you is what's currently in the pipeline. This is what's planned for the future. So you can see the hire dates are there in green of what's coming. So we're looking well into the future and trying to stay on top of things. And then if you can go to the monthly attrition report for 2023, Harmony. So in the last meeting, Mayor Dolly asked me to put together some statistics for you. Actually, go to the annual attrition, sorry, to give you a sense of what our attrition looks like. And so that I went back all the way to 2010 when UPD started. On the sworn side, you can see we're averaging about 31 people a year that separate. And then on the hiring side, we're doing the exact same. We're hiring 31 people. There are some anomalies in there with the separation of Harriman, Riverton, and Taylorsville. Those numbers in 18, 19, and 20 are a little bit elevated, and that is why. There was also sort of buyout in there that kind of skews the numbers a bit, but that gives you a sense, I hope, of what our attrition looks like. On the civilian side, if you can scroll down just a bit there, Harmony. It's a little bit different. 2018, when we lost all of our dispatchers, they went to VEC. That is why that number is enormous. That was about 80 people that went to VEC. So that skews that annual average a little bit. So it's not really quite that high. It's probably more in the range of 20 people a year. And then again, you can see the total hire there to backfill. So, and then on the next tab, the monthly attrition, I just drilled down month by month through the last 3 years. If you're interested in looking at that, I won't go through that here, but you can kind of get a sense of what that looks like as well. Are there any questions on any of that?
The 6 officers were down. That seems to me actually to be, I don't know what historically it's been, but that's not really an aberration. It's actually better than it's been in past years, is my recollection. Don't we usually run 10, 11, 12, something like that? So it's actually kind of, I think, good news. Would that be an incorrect statement to say that that's actually based on all of the uncertainty that's occurred since the legislation was passed and really since April? Kind of surprised that number's where it is. And so that's just a comment. And my other comment is the matching what's onboarding with the natural attrition rates. It seems like we're maybe not in as bad a situation as I might have expected.
We're keeping up, which is good.
And really where the challenge is the amount of candidates that are applying.
Yeah.
So we used to have like 100 and we had to choose from that. We're not getting that anymore. So eventually there will be an impact, but we wanted, Mark to be able to show you this because there are rumors out there that people are leaving, left and right over this split, and that's not accurate. So we wanted to make sure that this is true data for you when you hear those rumors, and it may happen eventually, but it's not happening right now. And I think a lot, that prevents people from going is when they look at other agencies, and we've talked about the culture here. And we have such a great culture, and people don't want to lose that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just looking at it briefly, I think that's all kind of good news to me. And I would just say, and then I'll, but going into the budgeting season, as we start the budgeting season in this transition, I totally agree with you, Sheriff. I think the number one problem is the amount of qualified applicants we are getting, and how, if there's a way we can address that in our policy. I'm assuming that this is not just UPD, this is not just our problem based on the transition we're going through. This is a police-wide issue. But if there's something we could do to address that piece as we go from the policy standpoint or benefits and comp standpoint, that I think would be the number one issue we should start to focus on. But as far as where we're at right now and looking out a year, I would have thought it would have been way worse than what it is.
Hopefully this is helpful for you. We'll continue to do it.
It is helpful.
Okay.
And if you like I said, we're happy to push this out to you on a regular basis so that you have it as well.
No, I think that was great. Thank you.
Thanks for working on that. It's just really helpful.
And that's all I have for my update.
Sure. All right, move into item 4, UPD reorganization update.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a few updates since our last one on the 4th of October. Talking a little bit about some of the highlights from the last 14 days. Again, communication continues to be a priority, both internally and externally. I had the opportunity to meet with the tenants, with the Public Tenants Association group in the tenants, discuss some of the changes that are happening. That turned out being a fairly long, productive meeting. Did the same thing with the Sergeants Association. That was last week. And that was the number of the sergeants, and they actually came up with some good ideas. And one of those was we decided at this point that the org chart is in a position to be passed out to not just our command staff and lieutenants, but there was a suggestion made that let's get that out to the sergeants, and rather than just send it out to all the employees, which there seemed to be quite a bit of consensus to get that out and let the employees see what's happening. But to send that to the sergeants and have the sergeants push it out to their folks to try to generate some discussion and conversation and questions and some good dialogue back and forth, which I did last week, sent those out to the sergeants and had some limited feedback on that. So far it's been positive. The org chart there's already a couple things that need to be adjusted, but those adjustments are becoming less frequent, more refined. So as that continues to evolve, I'll make sure you're updated on that. We also had a command advisory meeting, which was very productive regarding the org chart. Good conversation about the reorg and the direction we're going right now. On Tuesday, our facilities work group met, and we've, obviously real estate is not our strong point in law enforcement, but we've gathered enough data and information at this point where we kind of felt like it was good to reconvene and essentially reboot and relook at our plan and what we're doing. And like I described, we have identified a number of different options and contingencies for how do we relocate from here, and some other ideas and some other sites and hybrids of some of those options. So we essentially are hitting the reboot. I talked to our broker this morning. We're going to be meeting next week, and when I get a little more of a refined plan for you, I'll bring that to you. But we have a lot of options. But really what one of the driving factors is we went through the budget and we looked at what our budget was based on current numbers for this year's budget, and what can we afford to do in terms of leasing space or other options that may not require leasing commercial or independent building, but relocating to other facilities that we already have within the UPD, or a hybrid of that. So we're continuing to work on that project. I'm glad we started that early because it's become clear to me as we move forward with that, that is going to be much more of a lengthy project than we originally assumed in terms of finding the right place and getting settled into that. And however we decide to do that, but do that within constraints of being mindful of the costs and being mindful of some of the market influences right now, and making sure that we do that in a way that's efficient and productive. Along with the communication piece that I mentioned earlier, we've scheduled some Q&A sessions for next week with our civilian employees. And we'll be holding a couple of different sessions to try to get as many of our employees to come in, and if they choose to attend those, we'll provide the information we have. We also have in November, at the request of Mayor Stevenson, some additional, and I'm sure he'll probably reference this later, some Q&As for the entire organization or anybody who'd like to attend this. We have 2 of those scheduled, one for the day and then one later in the afternoon to capture the different shifts that people can come in and attend those. So you'll continue to see those kind of Q&A meetings more frequently as we collect more and more information to try to help our employees navigate what's good. We also had a good interlocal meeting. I believe Mayor Silverstein will be doing an update on that a little bit later. We're seeing a lot of good communication right now, internally and externally. We've met with most of the townships, and we've just got a couple of places we still want to visit to do reorganizational update, including going to your workshops and your council meetings. And so those have been good meetings. So we appreciate the hospitality. We'll continue to attend those as we can. And that will typically be myself, your precinct chief. I don't know if anyone has any other questions.
I have a question real quick on facilities. Are we done entertaining any part of UPD staying in this building? Is that off the table? Or is that still an option if we needed space? Rather than do something in haste regarding real estate, is this a viable option or no?
Yeah, we're still in the process of discussing that. Harry and I will be engaging in another meeting with Salt Lake County and looking at that as an option or a short-term option. But that comes back to what, and you make a good point. That's kind of what I was referring to. So I'm glad we started early, because now we're realizing this is going to be more of a, like the sheriff and I've talked about, with the phased-in approach. With the facility piece, that's definitely going to be probably a step-by-step approach. Even if we found,
I didn't know if it was still on the table from the county side. So.
yeah, I don't think it's off the table, but it's definitely
Yeah,
something.
there really has been no official request, so, yeah.
Yeah, we have that as it on our option sheet. But whether, we did that or whether we found our own place, our brokers indicate, upwards of 9, maybe more months to upfit and get into a place like that. And we're looking at a hybrid. Some of it, like, let's get the transition done. Maybe we can, camp here for a little bit, and then we move on and try to do it in a financially responsible way that doesn't interrupt operations. But there's openness to those options.
Just on the Q&A, I know that you were still finalizing date on that. Before we should put that out there,
The date on that,
or November 2nd, so I just didn't know that.
yeah, that was what is
Finalized to be announced at this point.
that is correct. November 2nd, 1 o'clock at 7 p.m. here in this building.
So this just came from, we've got, I think that we've had a number of important updates, meetings with all the town, right, and all the townships, conversation we'll have later today. Appointing a future chief and CEO. along with the organizational structure, that decided it was probably time that we do a department-wide Q&A. So that's the one right now, November 2nd, 7 p.m. We can get comments from there from all the UPD employees and board members are welcome as well.
Any questions for me? Thanks for your time.
All right, item 5, Salt Lake County Law Enforcement Bureau update.
I'm actually gonna ask Chief Ackerman to come on up and do that update. He's taking ownership's position on this piece, so. And the updates.
No. I was actually talking to a group of officers just yesterday and the questions are how it's been going and I let slip that, I can't believe it's already been 4 weeks. And after the meeting, I was corrected saying you've been here 6 weeks. So I've lost a week and a half in the last 2 months, but things are going quickly and we are making progress. Just a couple things that we've been working on. One is our compensation. The county did do a compensation study for all county employees. We were able to get a look at that. A lot of the data and the way that the county analyzes that is much different than the way UPD does. And so we've had several meetings trying to refine that and boil that down so that we're comparing apples to apples, if you will. So we are making progress. We do believe that we're very close on having that put together, which then will help us in this next part of putting together our org chart. That we've been meeting with different units, trying to refine that down as to what is going to be essential going forward and getting the feedback from those that are working those positions right now. And we've been actively doing that. That's another area we also feel is we're very close in. So a few other things, working with Merit Commission as we're looking to hire and also bring in ranked positions. We're working on a proposal for the Merit Commission and working with them on how we're going to go about doing that. And that's another project that we're in the middle of right now. In addition to creating job descriptions and creating policies and bringing over policies and writing that. It's just a few things we've been working on. So.
I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has regarding the process.
So I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but this is really more of a question for Deputy Mayor Lindback. We had tried to arrange a meeting between Mill Creek Holiday and Midvale with Mayor Wilson. And that's been put off twice now. I don't think we've got a date to do that. We really, there may have been some misunderstanding. We're not so much interested in pricing for, because I know we were waiting for compensation stuff and numbers, but we're really more interested, I think, in meeting with the mayor to kind of solidify an understanding about what the county's position is going to be with respect to the structure of Civilisa going forward, at least temporarily, so that we can have some stability. And I'd like to think that fits into this discussion. So I'd like to know if you could maybe move that up the priority list.
I can make the request. I think the challenge, frankly, that we're having is until we understand the numbers, I don't know what our position is on Civilisa at this point.
Okay.
So we can have a conversation. But I don't know that we're in a position to state unequivocally one way or the other. So, but I'm happy to speak to the mayor and have that conversation and clarify the intent.
We need to figure that out.
Agreed.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Substream, you have
Okay, so the governance committee has been meeting. We had a meeting in the last 2 weeks, and I don't know if Harry's serious. Oh, okay, great, Harry. These meetings have been a couple of board members present, but it's mainly been council for the who've been batting things around. And I think we're making progress with respect to the agreement. We spent some significant time about that merit model. We've kind of committed I believe we're committed to the board that UPD going forward will have a merit system will recognize the accumulation of seniority and that have already been accumulated. Because we're in the same department going forward, but because we are going to be separated from the county and the sheriff, at least we're going to reinstitute a merit model. So Harry was going to check with UFA because that's a merit system that is done under interlocal under the county. So we're going to look at that, but I just want to assure the officers that we are still pursuing that. We just need to figure out the model on that. Otherwise, I just have been going through the agreement, fixing some terminology issues to refer to members, to identify things like that. But there aren't any real surprises in the agreement. One of the things that I think we're settling on that we'll be presenting to this board for approval, and then want to go back out to member communities for ratification of the agreement. But at least get a look at that sometime before probably March. Is how we deal with potential termination. So what we've kind of settled on there is that there is a notice provision in a way to vest with respect to precinct assets. That would mean maybe what party members will get as their precinct assets. But we are fixing some things that have been problematic in the past. If you don't give the notice that's required and you try to withdraw under the non-funding provision that's required, we're required to have a non-funding provision under state law, then you won't get anything when you leave. So that we've had legal issues with respect to previous departing members. We're going to try to solve that so that there is a clear incentive for anybody that might want to withdraw in the future to give proper notice. But the other thing we have the eye on, and that's kind of the negative side of this, the positive side of this is that I think that the things that we're talking about are actually going to be ideas where we can attract new members at least. And we've talked about the possibility of putting into the agreement the potential for somebody outside the organization to potentially contract for some types of services that we provide, which makes those services more robust potentially, and also is a way for new agencies, new municipalities to get a look under the hood of UPD and test drive it a little bit before they fully commit. And so we're hoping that it might be a vehicle, approaching it that way might be a vehicle to be able to expand the department in the future. So, Harry, do you have other things that you want to add? We haven't hit on.
No, I think you covered it. I think that is where we are. I do think that we're getting fairly close to the point that I think once we define and outline the merit system that we're getting to a near final document. There might be a couple of issues we need to submit to the board for feedback and clarification, but we're getting closer. So I plan on having a new draft out to hopefully for the next meeting that you have. Well, we may have one more meeting of the interlocal committee before giving it to the board. I kind of want to review that with the committee, but we're getting closer, and I think you've covered all the areas that we have been working towards resolving and putting into the new interlocal.
And I think we would plan to come around to various councils that present this and explain and answer questions and things like that when we get to that meeting. So, any questions from anybody? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 7, designation of new chief and CEO on effective date, implemented and reorganized UPD. Harry, I think I'll talk about this a little bit and then maybe you can add on as well, just about the language of this. One of the things that has come up and been requested from rank and file 2 board members is making it clear of who the new chief and CEO of UPD will be once this reorganizing fully takes place and the interlocal is adopted. So as a board, we discussed this. We've said that this is something we want to be able to move forward with. I don't think I'm overstepping here, but the name that has consistently come up and that we'll further discuss today is Chief Mazarin to take on that role. One of the things I just want to say on this is, one of the things that has been told to this board is that there may be folks within the organization that are interested in having that chief position, who would like to move into that role. But at this point, maybe I'll say this and again, it could change, but as this board has discussed, at this point, there's not a plan to go into an open hiring process for that, and instead just have us make this decision. And again, at this point, we've talked about Chief Mazarin taking that on. Part of the reason for that is that we've spoken to labor about this and have been told, by and far, folks are supportive of Mazarin taking on that position. The other thing is when we move Mazarin into this role of being the chief of organizing and Chief Dial into the chief of police position, we stated clearly that those were temporary reassignments and were not meant to be permanent. The other thing is that, UPD is not restarting. We have a member leaving, and while that is creating maybe a greater disruption than what this organization has seen in the past, it's not cause for us to say, well, we're choosing a new chief as we reorganize, because all this is again, is just a member leaving. It just as members have left in the past. I'm newer to this board, but I don't believe we ever selected, a new chief of police. Went through a whole process for that during that time. The other thing, because there's going to be greater disruption, I think we're consistently looking at how do we minimize that disruption to the organization. And so I think those are kind of the big things that come from for me as we talk about Chief Mazarin. And so again, just want to say if there is anybody that is looking at that, may feel frustrated by us not going through that open process. That's kind of the thinking in my mind and why the board is kind of at this point has discussed moving in that direction.
So if I can just add, that's well stated, Mayor. And what I would say, in addition to that, in terms of some of the conversations that we have had, I wasn't able to attend the closed session in the last board meeting, but I have had conversations with several other board members. But this idea that we have is kind of bubbling up from what we have been hearing from people in the department, from various levels in the organization, that, the sheriff is filling slots perhaps. And, what about UPD? People are going to be concerned about the continuation of the culture in UPD. And this is really more, I think, our view is, our hope with this is to give people some certainty that the culture will not radically change, that the leadership will be stable. And, Chief Mazarin has been, the deputy chief of UPD already. And so given the unusual circumstances here, I think it would create more unsettling disruption or nervousness among the people that belong to this department and serve it to wonder about who their chief is going to be and have that be a question mark with respect to whether they, what they need to do with their future. So we're trying to, in this move, to actually promote stability and continuation of the culture that we have, which we want to preserve, which I think is one of our, other than our people, it's a huge important asset to this department and to the member communities that are served by it. So that's our thought on that. And we felt that stability outweighed the opportunity to open the position up at this point. And so I hope that is accepted. That's kind of where we're coming from.
I'd like to add to the conversation if I could. So I think we've had one conversation about this, and it was at the last board meeting. And frankly, I was completely caught off guard by that conversation. I've had some time to think about it and consult with my legal team on this issue. I don't know that it's appropriate for this board to make this recommendation and to move this forward. I know you're talking about the new UPD as a reorganized UPD. I see it as a new organization in a lot of ways, based on the fact that the elected leader is no longer, there's no longer an elected leader. That's the CEO of this organization, as was previous. There's no more countywide services being offered, and there's no unincorporated county services being offered. And it's not as if the county's electing to leave this organization. So I'm concerned that it's a little cart before the horse, so to speak. I don't see any reason why a new interlocal agreement can't be brought forth and signed. So you know exactly who's going to be in that new organization, because those are the individuals that should be voting on the new CEO. And Maz, this has absolutely nothing to do with you whatsoever as an individual. I have the utmost integrity and respect for you as a leader. And if you are chosen as the new leader of the organization, I would be fully supportive of that, but I don't think that's appropriate for this board to be making that decision. So that's the perspective I'm coming from on this. It has nothing to do with not honoring the instability that the employees are feeling. I completely understand that. It's a difficult time. It's a difficult transition for everybody, but that's the perspective I'm coming at it from. And I don't think it's appropriate for this board to make that decision.
I appreciate that and respectfully disagree with that.
No, that's great.
I guess I have a challenge with it just because, from my understanding, the county is not being forced to leave. And at this point, the county is not actually submitted a letter of leaving. The sheriff needs to leave. But they could choose, the county could choose to provide services here. I don't think that's the expectation, but I don't know that I feel comfortable saying the county is being forced. I think the other thing I would say is Maz isn't locked into this position. Even if this goes forward, at some point, the board could say, nope, never mind, or Maz could say, nope, never mind, right? It's not that his hands are going to be tied to this. This is saying, this is our plan. And this is the way we are intending to move forward in having that put in place. But again, neither of us on either end are tied to that.
Mr. Chair, if I could just address, if I could just,
Harry, yeah, go ahead.
thank you. The reason we actually talked about the question of this designation, and I think it's important to note two things. Number one, that until the interlocal is amended, the sheriff is our CEO. So I want to make it clear that that's not changing. But two, that I still think because it's going to be this organization moving forward will be a continuation of the existing UPD for many legal and financial reasons, then I do think the board has the authority to designate this as sort of a future intent once the organization is, once the new amended and restated interlocal is approved. So I'm not sure it's a legal issue. I've told the board I think they can do this as long as it's clear that the sheriff is still the CEO of this organization until such time as that amended and restated interlocal goes into effect.
Thank you.
I got a comment. I just feel like whether it's this board or a future board selecting the next chief of UPD, the continuity of Maz and his leadership, and he's been part of this administration for so many years, that continuity wouldn't, I mean, that's so important to me. It wouldn't change my decision now or in the future that we move forward with him. We could state it today, but it could be effective at a later date, whichever date we choose in the future. But it will give some stability to those who are wondering, if I stay with UPD, who will I be working for? What will my administration look like? And it would ease some concerns, I believe.
And clearly, it's not effective. The sheriff is still the CEO of this organization until there's a separation, and that's not our intent to challenge that in any way. But it is to do exactly what you just said.
Any other questions, comments?
So my understanding of this is, I'm just restating, it's kind of an intentional statement on behalf of the sitting board right now in terms of the direction we're going to go, which I agree is very important from the people I've talked to out in the organization, the officers and civilians out there, is an important statement for this board to make. But in terms of how the baton is actually passed, my understanding would be that right now that date has been established as July 1st of 2024. And at that time, you would have a number of things taking place in terms of how the batons pass, in terms of, that's when we would actually vote as a board to amend the interlocal, the restated and updated interlocal, appoint a new CEO of UPD, and also to establish our own merit commission, which is attached to the sheriff. So when the sheriff leaves, we have to have our own merit policy in place, which Harry is working on, and we think that's not going to be a big deal. But all those things would happen at the same board meeting, essentially. And all we're saying here is that the way this board is composed right now, our intention is to appoint Chief Mazurn as the new CEO, but that wouldn't actually take place until the sheriff steps down and we're making a new appointment. But I agree, I'm in favor of it. I think it's in the best interest of this organization to start making those statements publicly.
Just one clarification on that. I think the intent is that the councils will need to approve the new amended and restated interlocal, and then it would go into effect. And that date is something that still isn't final, but we're shooting for the July 1st date. But that's why we want to get the interlocal out to the councils much before that. And we've had some discussions with council for the county over this question, and we're going to continue those discussions. I'm not going to go into details with them right now because there's nothing firm, but that the new board, as we'll call it, under the amended and restated interlocal, will then go into effect when the new interlocal goes into effect, and that'll be based upon council approvals before then of the circulated interlocal. So that's sort of the plan going forward.
So I think, Harry, a number of times you've used the word intent. So instead of calling this a designation, would it be more appropriate to call it legislative intent? That it's the intent of the board?
I'm comfortable with, because that's what it is until it becomes effective. But, you know, I mean, we have a situation that right now where, and I'm not critical of this because I think it's necessary to move both organizations forward, but the sheriff has already designated people to fill positions in the reorganized law enforcement bureau. And really what we're trying to do here is to make sure that the rank and file understand that we're moving in a parallel course, and we'll have the stability. So I'm prepared to make a motion to indicate the intent of this board to designate Chief Mazurn as the new chief of the and CEO of the Unified Police Department upon the effective date of the departure of the sheriff as CEO.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion?
I'll just note that I didn't say I didn't believe it wasn't legal. I said I didn't believe it was appropriate.
I get it.
Okay.
And I don't mean to, if I misspoke there, I'm sorry.
I'm just being clear.
And I hopefully we can resolve some of that argument by virtue of the fact of making this as our intent to do it. But I do want to send a clear signal to the rank and file of UPD that we intend to do it. Okay.
Understood.
There's no further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain. I don't think it's appropriate.
Okay, that passes. Congratulations, Chief. All right, UPD reorganization discussion. Again, we've got this Q&A coming up. We've already talked about that a little bit. If there's on that, please let me know. I think that will hopefully be helpful for our officers and civilian staff. Again, I will definitely be there. Mazurn will be there. So those questions come up either around the political side of this, communities being a part of the organization, or the legislation we expect to see. And then I'll help answer those and any questions around the actual organization and positions. Mazurn will be able to answer that. So looking forward to that.
I'm sorry to clarify, who's expected to be there?
So in this, all are welcome. I will be there. Mazurn will be there. As in, that was I will be there as well.
Is it one and SIP or?
Yeah,
one
we have
and
two, sorry, two different sessions, 1 hour each, 1 PM. 7.
I wasn't aware of this, but is the target audience the employees or the
Yes,
public?
the employees, so.
Thank you.
The only other thing I'll just bring up, I know it's been on my mind, Debbie or Rick, I don't know, we'll see if you've got it on your top of your head right now. So I know that at this point, Slovisa has made an intent to, at least you're planning to go into truth and taxation this year to go to the cap. Was that 1.6 million? Remember?
It is an additional, I believe, 1.6. It puts us at 25 million, just over 25 million.
1.6.
7%.
The thing that I think plays into the conversation we need to have with the county. Because I know for me on that, it's looking at what is the sheriff's office intent of how your funding will impact Slovisa and what will be needed. And so I don't know, I talked to Maz about this a little bit, but was just this idea around if you are increasing by 1.6, I don't know what the total Slovisa estimated cost increase right now is. So like for Midvale, our estimated cost increase is 1.2 million based off of current operations and staffing. So I don't know what that is for Slovisa. And I guess what I was hoping, not saying we have to do this here, but mostly for the Slovisa board to think about on that is if you're increasing by 1.6, but our estimated cost increase is 2 million, then we're 400,000 short and having to figure that out. And with this, hopefully this legislation will go through and help. Whereas if it's a 1 million increase and you're increasing by 1.6, we still know the sheriff will be taking some. But I think that looking at that might give a better idea to the townships already of what kind of funding gap may already exist without even taking into account what the sheriff will be.
Just so you know, on the Slovisa agenda, I am going to be having a discussion about a new request to cover the southwest area. That's going to occur today. It's more of a discussion, put it on everybody's radar. And you know, I know sometimes you stay for Slovisa, it might be a good time for you to attend.
I don't know, Debbie, if that made sense when I don't know if I described that really well. So,
Were you asking for that number now?
yeah, well, no, it doesn't have to be right now. It just was an opportunity to bring it up, something that's been on my mind the last week. So. Do we have any other items that we want to discuss? Okay. All right. Chief Dial's always got the exciting stuff, acceptance of donations.
Good morning. Let's get up to a grant from Aftermath. This is something that's done every year by this group where we submit photos of canine from our department floated on across the country through social media. And based on those gifts are granted to those submitting agencies. In this case, we were granted $250 that will go towards our canine unit for the equipment nurturing.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion.
I'll second it.
And a second, any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. Item 10, approval of surplus resolution 23-10-01.
The standard rotation vehicles that we go through on a regular basis. These 7 vehicles are ready for decommission and have been decommissioned, are ready for sale.
Questions? If not, motion.
I'll move to approve resolution 23-10-01 to disposition of specific vehicles.
Second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, passes.
Thank you very much.
All right, upcoming meetings. We've got our next work session on Wednesday, November 1st at 9 a.m. and then the regularly scheduled board meeting on Thursday, November 16th at 9 a.m. Again, the day after that next work session will be those Q&As, so we'll also, I'm sure, bring that up then. Any other meetings not listed here that we should be aware of?
We do have an upcoming meeting between the three cities and Chief Mazurn that it's just a normal update kind of thing about that. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. I don't know the date. I don't know the date that it's popping.
It's soon. It's on the calendar.
Did you give us a location for the November 2nd meeting?
I believe it'll be right here.
This room?
That's what he said.
For Q&A will be right here, right here. Item 12, approval of the October 4th, 2023 UPD board meeting minutes. If there's any changes to that.
Motion to approve the October 4th meeting minutes.
Second. We have a motion, a second, any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There we go. Any other business today? So the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second? All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned, thank you.